This is Favors Financial Topics, various topics. So I have a scripture here that I think is useful and help you to understand Luke 14:28 through 30, count the cost. For which of you, intending to build a tower, sitteth not down first and counteth the cost, whether he have sufficient to finish it, lest happily after he had laid the foundation and is not able to finish it, all that behold it begin to mock him, saying, this man began to build and was not able to finish. Now, counting the cost can apply literally to, say, a person trying to build a house, right? You need to understand how to lay the foundation, but if you are laying a foundation, there is the expectation that you're going to build on top of the foundation. So what happens when a person has not calculated the cost for not only laying the foundation but building on top of it? And you have to build all four walls, right? You have to have the money and funding to take care of all of the elements of building a house, right? And laying the foundation takes time. It's going to take man hours. It's going to take labor hours. Okay, it's its own worry just by itself. So if you get the visual of a contractor laying a foundation and then building on top of it, what happens then if he doesn't have enough funding to put up the third wall? Or what happens when he doesn't have enough funding to put the roof on the house? Or what happens if he doesn't have enough funding for all of the electrical or all of the city ordinance requirements that are connected to building on top of a foundation? And so he did all of that. He said he wanted a house, and then he decided to lay a foundation, but he don't have enough. He doesn't have sufficient to finish the task. And when you look at having sufficient to finish it, that means you set the goal to complete. And if you did not count the cost to determine if you had enough to complete it, that means you did not do your due diligence. So that's a good visual, a contractor having to build on top of a foundation. Well, your life, if you go back and look at me, even though I'm qualified to teach at the community college level and my degrees are support that goal, if I decided to leave the community college environment, higher education environment, and move into business, I would have to add to my knowledge base, and I would have to have a record of education to my knowledge base, right? I don't necessarily have to go get a whole nother college degree. An associate's degree, a certificate in a particular area of the business or something like that would suffice. And so I would have to take into consideration, I would have to count the cost of moving between industries, moving from one industry to the next, right? If you're looking at this, here it is, you're trying to buy yourself a house, and you know that you need X amount of funds in order to get that done to accomplish that goal. But and then you are able to get the house. But then you get into the house and you realize that there are more costs associated with having a house and maintaining a house, and that you didn't have the savings necessary to cover those costs. And now you have to go get a loan, or now you have to ask someone for some money to cover just basic costs that you should have already saved. It can be anything. It can be anything. It can be something breaks down or something like that. Because remember, when you were in an apartment, you could call the maintenance man. All of the maintenance costs were incorporated into your rental lease agreement, so you didn't have to worry about that. But if you would have waited a little bit and really understood what the cost, attended a home buyer's orientation about how to buy a home, that orientation would have provided you with documentation, with information about what is required, down payment, everything, all types of saving costs, homeowners association costs, things like that, and you wouldn't be so shocked. Property taxes, things like that. You would have had some kind of list to work with, and then you could compare the list, what everything is required per month, including your mortgage, with what you are making. That's why it's interesting how people who became victims of the subprime mortgage fiasco still are not completely 100% victims, even if the banking industry pushed a subprime loan. The person still did not have a sufficient credit score to be considered for another type of loan. Now, there are some shady dealings behind closed doors, and even if you had a high score or just a good minimum average score, it's possible that a subprime loan still would have been pushed on you, because the subprime lending was linked to the investment banking, and so the more that they got those subprime loans, the more that they could sell them on the open market. And so then that netted many people, many investors, a lot of money. So there were some shady dealings. But if you look at yourself as 100% responsible for you, and you look at the fact that you are not making the kind of money every year to buy a $250,000 home, or $300,000, or $400,000, or $500,000. You make $25,000 a year, and you think you could pay for that home, that type of home, and that's something that you can think about. We act hastily because we really do want to get in a home. We want to provide a home for our families, and we want to just kind of do better in life. We don't want to live in an apartment forever. But then you also have to understand there could be a gap in your understanding about something, that some people are not really built for homes. Some people are built for apartments or townhomes or condos. They don't want the individual personal responsibility of having to maintain a home, and they don't make enough to hire a gardener, a mow man, or anybody else. They don't have the same type of money that middle class or upper middle class people, or rich people for sure, would have. They don't have the money for a nanny. They don't have the money for a housekeeper, any other types of person that maintains the home for the homeowner. And so that's something you want to think about. Relationships also, it doesn't make any sense to get into a relationship and find out that your man is cheating or your woman is cheating. They were cheating prior to the marriage. And if you count the cost and really think about, if he's cheating prior to the marriage, what in the world is he going to do when we actually get married? That's counting the cost, because having sufficient to finish it is suggesting that you can finish this marriage. But bringing in cheating and infidelity is going to hinder that goal completion. It's going to hinder any type of goal completion. That's why you have people who mock relationships, romantic relationships, because didn't she know her man was cheating prior to them getting married? We always do that. We always say that we're happy for them when they get married. We're kind of suspicious when they decide to get married. And then we look at the wedding pictures and we're kind of, oh, that's so sweet. That's nice. Okay, maybe they do belong together. And then some news reporting comes out, some media reporting comes out that they've been cheating, the person has been cheating. And immediately we get on the sarcastic, cynical, mocking bandwagon. Didn't she know that he was already like that? I mean, she married him. I can't believe he married her. She was for the streets. She was always like that. He decided to marry her, right? So we begin to mock him. And so you should marry some person who is cheating on you prior to the marriage, because you're not going to be able to finish out your marriage. You're not going to be able to lay the proper foundation, which will allow you to finish it out. Personal finances, any sort of things, anything that we get into, anything that we're choosing that's going to require some kind of finances, is important for us to sit down and think about, do we have enough to sufficiently fulfill the expectations and demands of this particular thing. You have a lot of people during the time when they were sending out stimulus checks were taking that stimulus check and buying tennis shoes and buying things that they just honestly really don't need. And that's not for me to necessarily say, but we are in a pandemic where the jobs are shut down. This was in 2020, the whole sort of year after, the whole time after March 2020, and things were shutting down. People couldn't get hours on the jobs. They were losing jobs. Some jobs would not be remote. And so the stimulus, when I made a Facebook comment that with that stimulus check, you should pay your rent up, because you don't know how things are going to turn. And then here, lo and behold, we are having rental problems. People are landlords are threatening to evict people, things like that. It would have been better to pay the rent, because then you can use later whatever money. You don't need tennis shoes during a pandemic. You can't go anywhere, right? So that's something that you want to think about. So for which of you intending to build a tower, sit it not down first and count it the cost, whether he have sufficient to finish it, lest happily after he hath laid the foundation and is not able to finish it, all that behold it begin to mock him, saying, this man began to build and was not able to finish. So that's something that I want you to think about. All right, hopefully you were able to gain some insight from this series topic. Like, subscribe, and visit. Like the video, hit the notification bell for future videos. You can visit my website, which is still in development, reginayfavors.com. You can always email me with a question, reginayfavors@yahoo.com. You will be able to purchase the book by the end of October 2021. I'm hoping that I will have it completed, completely revised rather. It is already written and done. I just have to edit it. It is Overcoming Setback: 5 Keys for Entering and Exiting Correction. Thank you for visiting the channel. Coming soon is my new book that I am working on presently and hope to complete by the end of the year, December 2021, preferably February 2022, and that is Favors Financial Recovery, Psychological Approaches to Overcoming Financial Setback, with some workbook elements. So it is it will be the book that will support the audio series, although I have developed the audio series prior to actually writing the book. So be on the lookout for this new book. When it comes out, when I finish, I will create an audio introduction to the book. Thank you again for visiting the channel.